Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harman. I'm Ella, Jeff's assistant. Hope you had a good week. Great to see you all. Thanks so much for joining us once again. Today, we're going to talk about money. Very, very important subject. Jeff's got a lot to go into. And we also have Mercury Retrograde coming up on the 23rd of this month. So a lot to go into. Let's get started, Jeff.
Thanks for that. Yeah, we definitely have some news. And like we said a few podcasts ago, pretty crazy times. We've got a former president being charged more than Al Capone ever got charged. And then we have, Merrick Garland literally assigning Al Capone's accountant to investigate Biden family, crime stuff. It's just insane. I mean, it's virtually, you got to laugh. I mean, literally, that's like appointing Weiss is like appointing Al Capone's accountant to investigate Al Capone, So it's like, really. So anyways, let the games begin. And clearly, we're going to see the games begin here as we wind into many of these powerful progressions that are going to be coming up over the next year and a half for the United States and the world too, I might add. So that's a big one. Also, we mentioned that, the Maui fires, which, when you look at poor Maui, my God, I don't know that Hiroshima looked much different in World War II because it's just devastated and the death toll keeps rising and rising. And remember, we had mentioned weird, strange stuff always happens during Venus retrograde inferior conjunctions. And that also parallels more of the stuff that was happening on Trump and, of course, the exposures on Biden. Joe Rogan just mentioned that, he thought that they're letting Biden crash so that it actually promotes the Democratic Party. One thing's for sure, I don't know what they're doing on that issue. I can tell you that the inauguration chart of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was atrocious. It couldn't have been worse. I mean, when you got Moon making hard aspects like that, and then the Sun, general significator of a leader, going to an opposition of Saturn, throw the chart away. It's a train wreck. And that's exactly what this presidency has been. Almost everyone is in agreement that, this has been a wrecking ball on America and the global economy in general. It's just been horrible. So as we move forward, I think Biden's going down. I don't think anything's going to stop it. I think you're going to see impeachments. I think possibly even more than just Biden. I think they're going to go after DOJ and Mayorkas. And there's a lot of things. Also, too, they just found out that the pseudonym for Joe Biden was Robert L. Peters. How about that? And they're finding more and more money. And I think they're going to find a lot of money as this goes on. Now, in typical fashion, they'll probably just let Biden hang and cut it off there because though if they really uncovered all the people behind all this and selling out our world to China, we probably would be absolutely, off the charts angry. I mean, these people have sold us out. You and I were just mentioning that the other day, Aletta. We've seen made in China for 30, 40 years, but now there's nothing not made in China anymore.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I've been seeing that sticker everywhere. And like you just said, yeah, growing up, I saw it as well, but now I'm really seeing it.
Not like you did then. Yeah. Not like you did then.
Like I did then.
You can't buy a pencil that isn't made in China. And, the American economy has just been swirling down ever since, Our biggest business is credit card debt. So it's very hard to make a living. And Biden has clearly, his job is to destroy America. And again, I don't even know if Biden knows what his job is, but he clearly has been assigned by the owners to rubber stamp all these things that are destroying the economy. He's looting the Treasury with the Inflation Reduction Act. And again, Musk said the same thing that I'll say, and that is the Fed is again about to raise more interest rates. I just saw another report on that, which is probably the worst thing you can do. We're in a deep recession, even though they tell us on the mind control news, oh, everything's fine, folks. Look over here. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. And literally, we are seeing the middle class crumble. Crime is so rampant. I've been reading articles every other day how workers don't even want to go to work anymore. Police, are leaving their jobs. The FBI is arresting police. Now, some of that may be legitimate, but I can tell you the war on middle America is really taking its toll. And if you talk to most people, nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care, as the world they know is crumbling and crashing around them. And that gets into our topic a little bit later about what I think the economic outlook is. And it's not just my opinion on the astrology, but many, many people are certainly mentioning that. So we've got a lot of stuff going on that is, I really hate to say, very, very dire for the outlook of this country. And I can tell you another thing, that we constantly see here is that the cities are just losing more and more and more safety. It's just nonstop. So I wish, I could be more positive on that aspect, but this ties into everything I've been saying. We've got a Pluto return on the United States this fall. We have Saturn stationing and literally retrograding right over the United States moon. And you don't need to know much about astrology to know that Saturn and moon is very dire situations. And when a planet stations, that means it's slowing down and stopping. It actually comes from a train, and then it appears to stop and go backwards. So it's literally retrograding and stationing right over the United States moon this fall. And you couple that with the progressions I've been talking about, particularly the Mars conjuncting the US moon. We're going to see trouble, a lot of trouble. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it usually manifests these energies. So,
well, you can feel it. You can feel it coming. You can feel the aggravation. We're all seeing it. We're all hearing it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and think about it. I mean, sky high gas prices, they just keep eking up. And you got the grocery store bills just keep eking up.
It's unbelievable. You're talking about like a tomato. Literally, a tomato that used to cost, let's say, 50 cents is now $2. It's just insanity.
Well, and look at, it's very simple. This is not rocket science, folks. When you shut off the energy systems like he's doing, just shut them down without any real alternatives. And, we're just supposed to go buy a Tesla, right? Which is fine. They're nice cars and all that. I know I get around them every day on the motorcycle. But I can tell you that it's creating more pollution with all these electric cars by far, because when you look at the manufacturing of batteries, you look at what it takes to charge them, and then he's shutting down all the coal-fired plants and nuclear plants on top of it. This is not a Green New Deal trying to save the planet. This is trying to destroy the middle class. And where does all of this go? I can tell you where it goes. It goes into digital currency. Well, everything's destroyed. Here, we've got a solution. Just stick your head in this noose and we will give you a new financial system. And this is really dire because you're never going to get the American people to agree to something like this, but you can force them into something like this. And if it's not stopped, this is likely where it's heading, is the destruction of middle America. And I got to tell you, I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's where it looks like it's going. So the next thing I want to talk about is getting into the upcoming energies. And you mentioned it at the opening, and that is we have Mercury going retrograde this Wednesday on the 23rd. It does it 3 times per year. Well, the interesting thing about Mercury retrograde, and of course we know the planets don't go backwards, but they actually appear so from Earth's perspective. Again, the best analogy is going down the road. If you're doing 55 and someone else is doing 50, they look like they're going backwards when you're really just a little bit faster than they are, and yet you're both moving. So that's the same principle behind retrograde planets. But I would say that what's important about this is it's always good to retrace, rethink, and rework. Like I just did a major maintenance on a vehicle yesterday. because I know Mercury's coming into retrograde, and I could feel the tires are getting bad, needed some work here and there. And I did that. And it's a really good time to back up your computers, to take care of any paperwork that's been lying around that needs to get done. Secondly, it's really good to maintenance your car. Check your tires, change your oil, take it to Jiffy Lube or wherever the heck you go, and get it looked over. Get it tweaked up, and also drive more carefully during Mercury retrograde. I find most people are just flipping along the highway, still looking on their phones and texting. And this is a time where you really want to keep the hands at 10 and 2, pay very close attention to things around you, because Mercury retrograde can make stuff come apart, especially those who are inattentive to it. Some people claim Mercury retrograde is actually a wonderful time, especially when it goes into what we call Cassimi. That means it goes within 17 minutes before, directly conjunct, and 17 minutes after. That's called Cosmi or Cassimi. And what it just means is that the planet, in this case, Mercury, goes right through the eye of the sun. And of course, we just had that happen right as the Maui fires happened with the Venus retrograde last week. So, and of course, Trump got indicted and more exposure on Biden. And I think there was a lot of other things too. There's usually a lot of strange happenings that happen when Venus goes retrograde. And they actually said it was the Quetzalcoatl myth of the Lucifer falling, and many things got exposed. And that's why they hid the king on that. So very interesting stuff. And the other thing I want to mention, and this is, I've got a number of gems that I'm setting for people, and I'm actually abstaining. And I've got real estate elections, because I do a lot of people, helping them to get real estate on the market. And I also do a lot of things with surgery elections, elective surgery. And I always tell them, don't do it when the sun is opposing Saturn. Stay out of that. Every single deal I've ever seen come down, when there's a Sun-Saturn opposition in orb, you're going to regret it. Well, that Sun and Saturn is in opposition until the 26th, which is, of course, our next podcast will cover that. But this is a time, don't get married. Don't sell or buy at this time if you have to. Don't set gems. And, it's not the end of the world. This happens every single year. But it's a time, see, oppositions are an aspect of perfect hatred.
So don't make any major moves, any major decision.
You can certainly plan. You can rework it and all that. But, like a stop and go light, I wouldn't run the red light. And that's a red light. So, there you go. That's it right there. So you might get through it and everything will go fine. And again, the same thing applies with, all of these energies, is how does it aspect your chart? And again, if you have outer planet transits, or you're in progressions and dashas that either mitigate or exacerbate these things, it can really make a difference. And sometimes, many people have good things going on and they breeze right through it, just like the person who accidentally blows the red light. They don't have a problem at all, right? So, and then other people go, well, wait a minute, my God, this was catastrophe. So it depends on the setup in your chart. So it's very, very important. So that's one thing going on. This week, we have a Venus retrograde squaring Jupiter. That's not the end of the world. The other one, though, that I don't like at all is the Mars opposing Neptune. That one is going to be exact right on August 22nd, the day before Mercury goes retrograde. So what is Mars and Neptune like? Well, Twilight Zone. This is weird stuff. Again, trickery. I always find that when you have Neptune, which is the planet of subconscious energy, and it may be a lot to do with the portal between our reality, our consensus reality, and you could say the subconscious mind and the astral worlds. And I really find that's true. And when you have Mars opposing that, it really can exacerbate things. So a lot of people breeze through this. They go, well, it's nothing, Mars will oppose Neptune every year and a half, 2 years, guaranteed. But it's a wonky time. And that happens, again, this Tuesday coming up on the 22nd, the day before Mercury goes retrograde. And FYI, Mercury goes retrograde on the 23rd at about 1 o'clock, approximately Pacific Daylight Time. If you're on the East Coast, it's going to be about 4 o'clock. And of course, if you're somewhere else in the world, just extrapolate from there. It's a great time to rework things. See, that's getting in step with the energy rather than getting blindsided.
Exactly. And no matter what you're working on, it could be something in your business. You could be working on, writing, and you want to rework that script or whatever it is.
Yeah. Business plans, so on and so forth. This is a time when you want to re-examine. The RE in the retrograde is really what you want to assign to things and rethink your plans, rethink your trajectories and all that and maintenance. Yeah.
Well, the big question today is, do we need to rethink our money? So let's get into that portion of the show right now.
Well, I would say yes. In fact, what's really interesting about this is we posed an interrogation, and I've had other people ask interrogations. What do you think is going to happen with the financial situation? We hear rumors now, and isn't this interesting? The 22nd is the Mars-Neptune opposition. We got Mercury going retrograde on the 23rd. Well, the BRICS nations are reported to be meeting right on August 22nd. And I don't know all the details, but apparently there is a series of meetings that are going to be going on with the BRICS nations. And what does that mean in plain English? Well, that if they implement a new BRICS nation, quote unquote, petrodollar or petrol currency, you could say, Biden's busy destroying the economy, shutting down all the levers of the great power of this country's natural resources and also energies. The rest of the world is doing the exact opposite. China, India, South America, many other places and these are the major players, Russia, they're all ramping up oil production, ramping up coal-fired plants and industrial mechanization that really takes these petrochemicals to do that. And again, fossil fuels does fall under coal. And what's very dangerous about this is if that happens, it could literally change forever the United States' position as the de facto currency being held as the petrodollar. And that could severely crash our economy. Now, I looked at a chart. Is this possible? I hate to say it. It just might be. And again, I really think when you look at what the Fed is doing right now, and I know a lot of people have asked me, is Jerome Powell a good guy or is he a bad guy? Well, in some senses, it really doesn't matter, does it? Because Jerome Powell is the guy who stands at the podium telling us what the owners want at the top of the pyramid, or wouldn't be happening. They print the money. They control the money. They're at the top of the funnel. He's at the bottom, regulating what they're doing with that money. So this is, again, right back to your money handlers. And they are at the top of the pyramid. And I think they have an agenda. And again, I've been saying this forever. We have a war going on here between the globalists and the nationalists. And this fits squarely into the whole coupling of the United States, Pluto return, destruction of a nation, and also the very powerful progressions and transits we have happening on the good old US of A. So the petrodollar status could very well be in big trouble here is what I see. Secondly, people are saying, well, what can we do, right? What can we do? Well, that's a tough answer. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to do about anything. My job is more to inform what the charts say. And I do get that precious metals are probably sustainable. I'm not so sure they're going to let gold jump to $50,000 an ounce or $10,000 an ounce, though it could hit 10. And silver soaring to the rates. I've been hearing this for 20 something years. Oh, gold and silver are going to bounce off the ceiling and put a dent in it. And that really hasn't happened. And I believe they're suppressing these. But I would also say the BRICS nations is purporting to use gold as their backed currency. And again, I don't think there's enough gold on this planet in the next few to equal the kind of debt that's been created in the Western financial system, not just in the United States, but at least at its current valuation. When you look at the trillions and trillions that these banks are in debt, these banks are in trouble right now. We've been seeing some strange and crazy stuff with banks. And this is a dangerous time, folks. Even real estate some of the top real estate brokers, I just read that they're actually saying real estate brokerage giants predict tough market for the remainder of this year and next year. Well, geez, do we need a brick to fall on our head to know that if you raise interest rates, people aren't going to get money as easy? And if they do, it's going to be more costly. That's going to drive down sales, which drives down prices to try and meet the market. And of course, equity that's being held in real estate, they're actually predicting that the real estate could actually crash lower than it did in 2008. 2009. So all of this, the mind control news, if you listen to them, they'll just keep you sedate and worried about Trump, right? Worried about Biden. In the meantime, the water level's right here at our nostrils financially. And we can see this everywhere, at the gas pump, at the grocery store, at taxes, everything. And then couple that with they're arming the IRS to spread out, men, get them, tax the crap out of us. And of course, this is a very dangerous scenario. There's no other way that makes any sense than they're trying to destroy the middle class. And of course, the rich will get richer, they'll get more powerful and replace it. The only thing you're going to have left is going to be the major conglomerates, the Walmarts, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks own all these major companies. So it's a very scary time. And I'm not trying to in any way say, oh, we're not going to get through it. I think we will. The big thing is, and this is what I've been saying, which this dovetails right into the whole theme of the Pluto return on the United States and these very powerful progressions in the Sati, which all in plain English means the United States, we're going to see its fate, I think, by 2025. If we're lucky and the angels that George Washington and the founding fathers really, I think, instilled on this country are as strong as we hope that they are, we will come out of this, the phoenix rising out of the ashes. I always mention the Roman soldiers used to do a ritual outside of a city to chase away the angel so that when they attacked, the resolve of the people in their hearts wasn't as strong. See, and that's the interesting thing about Vastu, which is the science of space. And it's like feng shui. Vastu may be the grandfather. And I do a lot of Vastu for clients in their offices, in their businesses. I've even set up doctors' offices for that. It's really fun stuff. And Vastu is the science of spirit in space. And, again, George Washington lowered the cornerstone of the Capitol into the ground at a good astrological time to ensue a good energy on it. It's called electional astrology. Benjamin Franklin, so many others. And again, I had mentioned Ronald Reagan had sworn himself in at 1202 at the behest of Carol Ryder, which was an interesting astrologer. So electional astrology dates back to antiquity with coronations of kings and queens and various different monarchs and so on and so forth. And again, of course, presidents. And literally, I think we're going to see whether the United States is still standing as it is now when all this completes. I see a really tough road ahead. And to, kind of bookend this topic of your money, I would say it's really important to watch your money. I think it's a great time now to have petty cash around, some supplies. Not a bad idea to have a little food, extra water, extra, you got to watch it with fuel, storing them. But, if you can do it safely, great. But really a great time to think a little bit maybe out of the box, because I think we're in very challenging times right now. And I think it's been engineered. It's very transparent. We don't need a brick to fall on our head to see what they've been doing. They've literally been destroying America from every angle. The borders, the crime, the cities, the governors, the finances, the costs of good raising. And now, if that doesn't do it, we'll get them with the IRS.
Oh, God, totally. It almost seems like they're trying to prevent people from gaining wealth, any kind of wealth. They just don't want it. They don't want it. I mean, imagine a world where we had universal wealth. I don't know if the eagle could handle it, right? Actually, I don't know if some eagles could handle it, but that's the way it should be. And I love what you're saying about thinking outside the box, because it's very important to do that right now. Where are you putting your money, and what is your money doing? No matter where it's sitting, in a bank or in a mutual fund or wherever it is, what's actually happening with that money? What's that money being invested into? What are they doing with your money, right? We really need to pay attention to that and really take a close look at it.
I remember, I think it was 1975 or 1976. People might remember the Milwaukee Bucks had won the world championship, and the owner of that company, or I should say that basketball team, was Wesley Pavlon. And we were building a house for a very dear friend of mine, Andy Anderson. And Wesley had come up to me, and I thought he was crazy at the time. He's a big guy, he's like 6'4". He comes up to me, he grabs this tool I had in my hand, and he slams it into the ground. He looks at me, he goes, "This is real." He says, "I can put my hands on this, this is real." Now, this is a guy who's so wealthy, he literally would fly, and this is the mid-'70s, in a jet helicopter. And then he had a Rolls Royce that played Bridge over River Kwai when you hit the horn. So this guy was worth a lot of money, and a really nice guy. And bottom line is, he was telling me, "Jeff," he says, "I don't think the economy is going to last much longer." This is the mid-'70s. This is right after Nixon took us off the gold standards. He says, "It's all going to crash, all going to go to hell in a handbasket." Of course, that's nearly 50 years ago now, and it didn't happen, right? We have had our ups and we have had our downs. We've had our peaks and valleys and our recessions and so on and so forth. But this is different. This is really different right now. And I don't want to cause alarm and panic, but I really have to say, if there was ever a time that I see in the astrology, the United States is in big trouble, that true wealth could really be decimated, especially in the middle class, it's now. And what do we do with this information? Well, pull in your horns, go into something that's solid. Real estate, I think, is always going to snap back. It always has an intrinsic value. Precious metals, speculative things. Technology is good.
Technology.
That too. The biggest thing is be aware of the times we're in. These are very, very precarious times. Some people will make fortunes. Some people will lose. I really believe that, Biden is a dyed-in-the-wool communist. I really do. He acts like it. He's backed by them. And we are seeing a world change. We were talking about this earlier. 2020 was truly the trigger point. Look at what you see right now. AI is everywhere. AI this, AI that, AI this. The reason why, on the winter solstice, and I don't care if you're a sidereal astrologer or you're a tropical astrologer, the bottom line is we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in the tropical zodiac happen precisely on the day of the winter solstice. It was so close, it was eerie. That was a trigger point that came into this world since the Industrial Revolution, which is right back when George Washington was still fighting for the British, right before the changeover of this country. They knew it was coming. Well, we just had another, what we call mutation conjunction into a high-tech revolution. In 5-10 years, you're not going to recognize this world. I mean, the computing power that is in existence, not only for AI, but just the government surveillance, is creepy. And we are going to see our world become so networked. I mean, they're not only going to know where you shop, they're going to know what your blood pressure and all your statics are, wherever you go. I mean, everyone has a communications device today that is more sophisticated than the average desktop computer was probably 5 years ago. So we're really in a new era. We're going to see explosions, not only in AI, but genetics, weaponry, warfare, technology, money. And see, that's the scary part. If this Constitution and Bill of Rights is not maintained and they don't keep skirting around it, George, I think it was Thomas Jefferson said it best. He said, anyone ever gets to print our money, they will be more dangerous than any standing army. Folks, we're not talking about printing your money. We're talking literally about them owning your money. They can turn you on and off with digital currency. This is where they want to go. And, we have to do whatever we can do through the political means to stop this, because if we lose the sovereignty and freedom of our individual money, you're basically a rat on a wheel. This is all going to play out over the next couple of years, and we'll definitely keep updating a lot more about this as things develop.
Yeah, we sure will. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone out there joining us today. Watch your money, watch your health, and take good care of yourself. We'll see you next week on Astrology Today with Jeff Harman.